Spring 1945. The world holds its breath as the final act of World War II unfolds in Europe. The continent is scarred by years of relentless conflict, and now, all eyes turn to Berlin. The Red Army stands at the edge of Berlin, their ranks swelling with soldiers and armored columns, ready for the decisive assault. Before them lies the heart of Hitler's crumbling Reich, a city battered by years of bombing, its streets filled with rubble and despair. For Stalin, Berlin is more than a city. It's the ultimate symbol of victory and vengeance, the prize that will cement Soviet power in Europe and avenge the suffering of his people. He orders his top generals, Zhukov and Konev, to race for the prize, fueling a rivalry that will shape the final days of the war. Zhukov's path is blocked by the Seelow Heights, a natural fortress rising above the Oder River, the last and most formidable barrier before Berlin itself. The Germans, battered and outnumbered, fight not for victory, but to buy precious time, hoping to let as many civilians and soldiers as possible escape west to the Americans or British, away from the advancing Soviets. General Heinrici commands the defense, determined to hold the Soviets back as long as possible, using every trick and tactic he knows to delay the inevitable. The stakes are enormous. Whoever takes Berlin will shape not just the end of the war, but the future of Europe for generations to come. The city's fate will determine the new balance of power. For Soviet soldiers, this is the final push after years of brutal war. For Germans, it's a desperate last stand, a fight for survival and for the lives of their families. The Red Army is driven by rage and the memory of atrocities committed on their own soil. Villages burned, families lost, and a desire for retribution that fuels their advance. German defenders, many just boys or old men pressed into service, know what awaits if they fail. Occupation, retribution, and the collapse of everything they once knew. The battle is fueled by vengeance, fear, and the grim knowledge that mercy will be rare on both sides. Exhaustion and desperation are etched into every face. Every inch of ground is contested, every decision shaped by the looming end of the war. The city becomes a maze of barricades, snipers, and shattered dreams. The fate of Berlin and the shape of post-war Europe will be decided at the Seelow Heights, where the outcome of this titanic struggle hangs in the balance. The stage is set for one of the bloodiest and most decisive battles of World War II, a clash that will echo through history. The Seelow Heights aren't mountains, but they rise just enough above the surrounding land to command the landscape. They dominate the flat Oder floodplain, standing as a natural barrier between the advancing Soviets and their ultimate prize, Berlin. From the ridge, German defenders can see every Soviet move across the marshy, exposed ground, giving them a crucial advantage in both sight and preparation. General Heinrici transforms the terrain into a fortress, 3 defensive lines, deep trenches, reinforced bunkers, and cleverly hidden anti-tank ditches, all designed to slow and bleed the enemy. He pulls his main force back from the front, shielding them from the expected Soviet barrage and ensuring his men are ready for the real assault. Machine gun nests and artillery batteries are positioned to cover every approach, creating deadly kill zones across the open fields. Meanwhile, mines, barbed wire, and obstacles turn the ground into a deadly trap, making every step forward for the Soviets a gamble with death. The feared 88mm flak guns, legendary for their power, wait in ambush for Soviet tanks, ready to unleash destruction. The German soldiers know they can't win the war here, but they are determined to make the Soviets pay dearly for every inch of ground. For the Red Army, the heights loom ahead like an impenetrable wall. One last, terrifying obstacle before the gates of Berlin. The defenders' advantage is clear: high ground, strong fortifications, and a network of interlocking fields of fire. Above all, they have the will to resist at any cost, fighting for every moment they can delay the inevitable. The Soviets must break through, no matter the price, knowing that beyond these heights lies the heart of Nazi Germany and the end of the war. Zhukov opens the assault with the largest artillery barrage in history, over 1 million shells in 30 minutes. Searchlights are meant to blind the Germans, but instead, they silhouette Soviet troops in the mist, making them easy targets. Heinrici's gamble pays off. His main forces are pulled back, so the Soviet barrage hits empty trenches. When Soviet infantry and tanks advance, they're met by devastating fire from the heights. The ground is a muddy, cratered nightmare, and the Soviets are cut down in droves. The Red Army expected a breakthrough, but instead, they're trapped in a killing field. Zhukov's plan for a swift victory stalls before the main German lines. The cost of every advance is staggering. April 16th. Disaster for the Soviets. Tanks bogged down, infantry is slaughtered, and progress is minimal. Zhukov, desperate, throws his tank armies directly into the fight on day 2, creating chaos and traffic jams. German artillery and anti-tank guns exploit the confusion, but Soviet numbers begin to tell. Inch by bloody inch, the Red Army claws up the heights, capturing villages in brutal close combat. By the 3rd day, German lines begin to crack, ammunition is low and losses are heavy. Heinrici orders a fighting withdrawal to save what's left of his army. The gateway to Berlin is finally open, but at a horrific cost. The German Ninth Army has bought precious time and inflicted massive casualties. The Soviets have paid dearly for every meter gained. The Seelow Heights are littered with the dead, a grim prelude to Berlin. The final battle is now inevitable. General Heinrici's defensive genius saves thousands of German lives. His decision to pull back before the barrage is crucial. His strategy: slow the Soviets, make them bleed, and buy time for others to escape. Zhukov, under immense pressure from Stalin, relies on brute force and accepts staggering losses to win the race to Berlin. His decision to commit tank armies early leads to chaos, but eventually breaks the German lines. On the ground, German officers used terrain and ambush tactics to deadly effect, especially with Panzerfausts in close combat. Soviet tactics evolve, shifting from broad assaults to concentrated attacks on weak points, using combined arms to overwhelm strongholds. The battle becomes a test of endurance and adaptation. In the end, relentless Soviet pressure shatters the German defense. The Red Army surges forward, but the cost is immense. The true cost of Seelow Heights is staggering. Exact numbers are still debated. German losses are estimated at around 12,000 killed, but many more among poorly trained militia. Soviet casualties are far higher. Modern estimates put the dead at over 30,000, with more than 100,000 wounded or missing. The battle is a brutal microcosm of the Eastern Front lives spent for every inch of ground. Historians argue over Zhukov's tactics. Some call them needlessly costly, others say speed was essential to end the war. What's clear, the price for breaking through was horrific. The bloodshed at Seelow Heights foreshadows the final agony of Berlin. The legacy of the battle endures, etched deeply in the memories of those who managed to survive its horrors. For many, the echoes of that time still shape their lives, as they recall the chaos and loss that defined their youth. One German teenager remembers the ground trembling beneath his feet, the sky ablaze with fire and smoke, and the overwhelming terror of fighting just to survive another hour. For him, and countless others, the war was not about grand strategy, but about clinging to life in a world turned upside down. A Soviet tank crewman recalls the frustration and rage that surged through him as he watched his comrades fall, one after another. The drive for vengeance and the hope for victory became the only things keeping him moving forward, even as the cost grew higher with every passing day. These personal stories strip away the layers of military strategy and reveal the raw human cost of war. Behind every statistic lies a life forever changed, a family shattered, and a future rewritten. Historians still debate Marshal Zhukov's leadership. Was his approach reckless, sacrificing too many lives, or was relentless pressure the only way to break through the German lines and end the war sooner? Konev's southern breakthrough was faster and less costly, but Zhukov faced the strongest, most entrenched defenses. The choices made by commanders shaped the fate of thousands, and the debate over their decisions continues to this day. Today, the Seelow Heights Memorial in Germany stands as a solemn reminder of the carnage and sacrifice that took place here. Visitors come to pay their respects, to remember, and to reflect on the price paid for peace. 3 enduring lessons emerge from Seelow Heights. Terrain can level the odds between armies, command decisions carry a terrible human cost, and even as a war nears its end, the fighting can become its most desperate and brutal. The battle for Seelow Heights was not just a military clash, it was a struggle for survival, for revenge, and for the uncertain future of Europe. Civilians and soldiers alike were swept up in the storm, their lives forever altered. The Red Army's hard-fought victory at Seelow opened the road to Berlin, paving the way for the final days of the war. But that victory came at a price that still echoes through history, reminding us of the sacrifices made. The fields of Seelow are silent now, covered in grass and wildflowers, but their story endures. They warn us of the true cost of war, and the importance of remembering those who paid it. In the end, the lessons of Seelow Heights are written in blood and memory, carved into stone and carried in the hearts of those who remember. The fate of Berlin, and in many ways the fate of the world, was decided on those muddy, blood-soaked slopes where history was made and lives were changed forever.